Okay, back to the European qualifiers we go. And originally I planned to make now two posts because two big events happened since the last time. The one was the new FIFA rating was published with quite some shift ups now that the World Cup is more than a year away. World Cup results are only counted for 50%, which makes more recent results count more and causes quite a few shakeups in the whole FIFA rating. But more on the FIFA rating, its advantages a little bit later. Something in the back of my mind, but we're talking about European qualifiers right now. The other thing that happened is that UEFA come down on Croatia and punished them by making them play two games behind closed doors. After the game behind closed doors against Italy, there were some incidents on the field. There was a swastika emblazoned by some crazy wacko fans. And so the repercussions, Croatia feared the worst. Well, they got the point deducted that they gained against Italy. Game still counts as played, but they have to play two more games behind closed doors, meaning they basically lose the home field advantage in those. And they also had to pay a hefty fine. But as it turns out, this latter change actually had very little impact on the overall outcome. So I wrap it into one post, and most of the changes are due to the FIFA rating. I'll show you how and where. I also will use this post to talk a little bit about how things are now in the different groups before we go more into the final four games this fall. So the biggest change in the overall probability of winning, which is basically where we all end up in about a year from now, is that Germany is now below 30%. Belgium flopped with Holland. Spain is a little bit up now since their bad result at the World Cup doesn't count for much. And also Italy is a little bit stronger than it was before. There were a few changes down here as well. I think Denmark has jumped up. Austria for sure jumped up a lot. And of course Wales also jumped up a lot, as did Iceland. But the overall field that I have here, the 24 nations, are pretty much the same. Another one is that the Ukraine is now ahead of Russia because they have a better rating. So that's the overall standings. Very minor changes. Most of them are actually the probabilities that are lower for teams that have been at the World Cup, have been performing well at the World Cup, I should say, a little bit higher for others that have been performing exceptionally well in the qualifiers. Now, if we go down to the qualification probabilities, that's maybe a little bit more interesting at the moment. There hardly any changes have occurred. The one change that has occurred is that Croatia was ahead of Slovakia after the FIFA rating, but then they got the point deducted and fell back again. But again, Croatia is now standing at 0.994 probability instead of 0.996, so it really doesn't matter that much. Italy improved slightly. Germany came down because of the change in their rating. Wales is now in the top 11. Iceland also jumped up high, as did Northern Ireland. And we have now Russia is dangling at the edge of being qualified. I think also Denmark, Sweden did improve slightly. So for the overall standings, let's look at the overall standings. Let's look first at how things have changed here in the qualification probabilities. Who were the winners of the FIFA rating? And then for the Croatia verdict, I'll show this in the Word file and I will post a whole table below. So there were only slight improvements. The big winners were Albania. Again, they got more points. Also due to the CS verdict, so this is another implication. Bosnia-Herzegovina and Turkey, two outsiders to qualify now. Poland increased a bit, they had a quite strong year. Hungary did increase and Ukraine did increase, so those I would count as slight improvements, very minimal impact, less than 1% change for most of the teams. And then the teams that are worse is Russia. They have not won a game since they beat Liechtenstein in the first game of the year. The Czech Republic probably lost to Iceland, proved costly. The Netherlands had a horrible year since the World Cup. Then Israel, which we will see in a bit, have actually looking quite well at the beginning of the year, but since then have dropped. And Scotland is probably the victim of its tough qualification group. So those are the losers based on the FIFA rating with the changes. For the Croatia verdict, you see there is minimal impact all across the board. So really not that many changes, and we'll see a few more how where it was impacted a little bit later. Very interesting. Croatia is towards the bottom, but they only lost their qualification probability just 0.003. And Scotland and Albania actually lost more. So all this is within simulation error. So I wouldn't put too much emphasis on all that. Well, let's go back to the standings and then we'll review them group by group. Nothing really changed except that Bosnia Herzegovina leapfrogged Israel. Things got maybe a little bit tighter, maybe a bit looser, but nothing really changed overall. I know there's a drop for Germany. I also know that Group H is a little bit closer now. But I think the better way to look at this is in kind of a little history lesson. You remember those graphs that are on the bottom here. I'll show you actually my full Excel file where you can actually see, and I'll go to it group by group, how things have developed over time and where the standings now and how things have changed. So let's go straight to it. I think it might be quite interesting. I have not revealed those so far, and I thought this might be a good time, and we'll see how things will be going. So we'll start out. This is not with Group H, but I want to start out with Group A. This is how the expanded points total has changed. And just as an illustration, the first point here is at the beginning of February, beginning of February, yeah. Last year, just before the draw, and then the draw happened here, so we can see here immediately the impact of the draw, which had only slight implications. Then there was a big change occurring here at the World Cup. The Dutch suddenly got a lot better, increased even more, and then lost the first game to the Czechs, and have been decreasing ever since. So you can see how the points total for the Dutch, the expected points total in the group has been decreasing and is now at around 19 points, whereas the Czech Republic is now second, and Iceland, thanks to winning over the Czech Republic here in March, they are now expected to finish in first place. We also see a drop for Turkey, Latvia also, and Kazakhstan has always been the bottom team. But while this looks like here's a tight race, and probably it is, if you look at qualification probabilities, it all becomes a little bit more indicative of what's happening. We'll see basically there are three teams in the first three spots, and then there are the other two, Latvia and Kazakhstan, as well as Turkey, that barely have any chance of qualifying anymore. So I would say those three are, at least we'll have two qualifiers. So a lot of things have been decided. We see here the dramatic change happened right at the beginning of the tournament when Turkey lost to Iceland and it went all downhill for Turkey. Latvia, Kazakhstan never got in. Iceland had a steep increase in their performance. The Czechs looked very well at one point but have been decreasing now the last few months, but still should probably qualify, as well as the Dutch. With the Dutch have two home games in hand against the top two teams, so still a lot of things are happening. If you look at the probabilities of winning the overall tournament, we actually see again Turkey drop off. We see the Dutch are consistently between 0.06 and 0.12. Note the logarithmic scale here, so this is always times 2, so 0.01 to 0.02, then 0.02 to 0.04, so kind of compress everything to a little bit better see what's happening here at the bottom. But to say it's clearly, if you're in this area here, you are absolute top favorite. Here in this band, you're a contender, and then you kind of get into the outside shot, I would say, up until in this band, and everything here is really just happy to be there if you qualify. So we had that the Netherlands were an outside shot and they became a contender, and now due to the bad performance they are dropping again into the outside shot. Let's look at Group B. Also very interesting. Belgium has been for a long time the favorite, but now since losing to Wales, suddenly Wales is there. If you look at the Wales trajectory, they started kind of low and have been increasing ever since, and Wales is for sure one of the success stories of the last year. On the other hand, we have Bosnia Herzegovina had a very bad fall, but maybe they're improving now. And we see the interesting curve for Israel. Israel didn't have the home game against Belgium until this March. So they looked very, very well, even second place over the winter break, and suddenly they lost all crucial games and now are out of contention, more or less. Crucial game, they are now right like Bosnia Herzegovina, but I think Bosnia Herzegovina has slightly better chances. The other two teams, Cyprus and Andorra. Cyprus had a big boost by beating Bosnia, but since then, pretty even, not going anywhere. And same thing goes for Andorra. And if you look at the qualification probabilities, we really see that it's all Belgium and Wales. Israel is more or less out of it. Maybe Bosnia has a chance. Right now, sitting a little bit above 30% of making it. They probably will take third place, and maybe in a playoff they have a chance of going that far, but it remains to be seen. Group C. Again, points total. It's very much a three-horse race. On top, Slovakia had the big improvement in the fall. Since then, they are set to qualify very well. Spain is just below them after Slovakia beat Spain. Note the drop for Spain in the World Cup, but then they improved a little bit. The loss did hurt them, but basically stays stable. The other three teams are more or less out of it. Ukraine is looking for a pretty safe qualification playoff spot. I'm not sure if they will have a direct qualification for that. They need to get some points from the top two, I would assume. So probability of qualifying, we see Slovakia, Spain more or less qualified. Ukraine looking in, would be a favorite in a playoff, but not much more than that. Probabilities of winning the tournament, still Spain is going strong, although they lost here a lot. They went from top favorite to outside shot, and they remain a little bit outside shot, but maybe underdog. Note how Slovakia has shot up here, and Ukraine and Slovakia about winning the tournament is about the same. So Slovakia had a good qualification chances, but their rating didn't increase that much that they will flip-flop Spain in the chances of winning the tournament. Group D, we'll look with the points. If you look at it, it looks quite dramatic what happened to Germany. They won the World Cup, they were really, really looking well. I mean, they had 27 points scheduled, and then their loss to Poland cost them good 3 points. And since then, they have been kind of stable. So this looks dramatic, but it's only the one loss. It looks kind of confusing here. Who is better, Scotland, Ireland, Poland? For a long time it was the two Brits, like Scotland up. Poland, however, now crystallizes as the second strongest team. Scotland third, Ireland fourth, and what looks very close here, if you look at how the qualification probabilities are, it's a much clearer picture that we have Germany will qualify based on the strength of the squad. Poland is looking for a relatively safe second place, leaving Scotland for the playoffs. Very, very outside chances for Ireland. Ireland is probably not going to qualify at all. Looking at the probabilities of winning the tournament, we see Germany started as an outside shot and now is safely in the top favorite status. Note that this here is very compressed, so the difference between 2.256 and 0.512 is the same as in this area. This is kind of the logarithm, so we don't see the changes in the German probabilities that much, but Germany is now around 30%. They were as high as 36% of winning the entire tournament. Poland showed up. Here Ireland was popping at the beginning, and now Scotland is popping up here and there should they qualify. Group E, the other big British success story, is England. England and Switzerland were supposed to be close at the beginning, but then England beat Switzerland and then haven't looked back. Swiss also lost the game to Slovenia, which made the Slovenes look good, but now it has kind of consolidated that Switzerland is second place, England is not even in danger of losing first place anymore, and according to my simulations they have all but qualified. Statistically they have already qualified. The other three teams are just off the track. If you look at the qualification probability, it's a little bit more interesting. We see England qualified, Switzerland pretty much qualified. Slovenia is losing a little bit ground. They had a good chance here, but then since then have fallen off the track. And probably winning the tournament, now England is going a little bit more in outsider status. They have been actually being kind of underground. Note how close they were with the Swiss, but since then a big gap opened between the two teams that were actually thought of being kind of evenly matched. Group F, probably the most interesting because most changes occurred here. First of all, the drama about Greece. They not only have financial drama, they also have a drama on the soccer field. They started out as firm favorites. Look at this gap. And then in fall, and now with two losses to the Faroe Islands already, they drop, and are now from first to to last place. Romania made good use of that in shooting up the ladder. Then Northern Ireland, the other big surprise, have very, very well here. They lost to Romania and then still winning and racking up points. And kind of surprisingly, Hungary, that were actually the second seed team, were looking at a third place spot, then lost to Ireland, I think. Didn't look well for them, but now they are back in contention. Probably look at a safe third place finish because Finland is just not going anywhere, and who knows what the Faroe Islands will be doing if they can keep up some surprising results. Maybe they can beat the Hungarian suite, but it doesn't look like that at the moment. If you look at probabilities of qualifying, Romania is there, Northern Ireland almost there, and also Hungary looks pretty good. Potentially, they could even end up in a fixed qualifying spot, although I doubt it. No chances for the remaining three teams, although for the Faroe Islands it's probably based on their still a quite low rating. Let's go to Group G. Group of Austria, my home country. We saw at first not much changing, except that Austria and Montenegro were kind of dancing with each other. Montenegro ever edging closer, and then suddenly Austria exploded and are now firm favorites to win this group, or at least qualify from this group. Sweden is in a comfortable spot, and since Russia lost now second game to Austria, Russia actually struggling. Montenegro, Liechtenstein, Moldova. Out of the picture. If you look at the overall, we see Austria is qualified. There's only a thousandth chance that they won't qualify at this moment. Sweden looks very good as well. You have to be worried about Russia. The other three teams are out of it. Now we finally come to Group H with the Croatia verdict, and we see that this group was all at any time all about Italy versus Croatia, where they flip-flopped spots when Italy drew only in Bulgaria, whereas Croatia won that same day. Other than that, everything has been rather steady between those two. They flip-flopped spots. They looked like Croatia could widen the gap, and now they lost the point that they that they won against Italy. Actually, the game was played here. So we see it got closer here. Also note this kind of symmetric dance between Norway and Bulgaria. First, Norway had the upper hand in Bulgaria for a short brief period, and now Norway looked quite strong over the winter break, but has since decreased. The other two teams are not worth mentioning because Azerbaijan and Malta are going nowhere. But if you look at qualification probability, both Italy and Croatia are more or less qualified. Norway does not look very strong, and Bulgaria has only an outside shot. So this is a case of two teams dominating the group, and third place not leaving much chances, as both teams are also kind of lowly rated. And last but not least, a very interesting group is Group I, where also a lot of changes happened. You see that Portugal looked very, very bad after losing their first game to Albania. Were still scared to be in first place. Then they kind of made up for it by winning in Denmark and have been going strong ever since. We have here Denmark and Serbia were initially quite well. Serbia didn't play, so they stayed steady, whereas Denmark won. But then Serbia started losing games and not showing up at all, and are now in last place. Also thanks to this Albania verdict by the CAS, where Albania now suddenly, after starting strong, then looking kind of, you don't know where they're going. Suddenly they're very strong, very much into it with Denmark. Armenia is probably a tipping point in the whole group. They can take points that might be crucial. So if probabilities for qualifying, Serbia is already out of it, and this is one of the biggest drops over the entire tournament, especially thanks to this verdict that put them right at zero. Even Armenia has a chance of qualifying. Portugal looks as being present next year in France, and Denmark also looking strong. Albania is not looking as strong thanks to their not so high rating, but still there's a good chance. Well, hope you enjoyed this. It was very, very extensive, but I thought I'll show you that, and I may do that at a later point again. But I think it's really interesting to see how things change over time. A last thing I've forgotten before I wrap it up is now the progress for winning. And here you see four teams because France is actually placed in this group to play friendlies. We see France is always as contender, but not the top favorites. So France was steady here. Portugal is edging to be maybe a outside shot. Denmark would be happy to be there. Serbia is already gone. Well, that was it. Hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you soon. I'm planning to do something a little bit on the World Cup draw now, and then we'll see in the fall more on the European qualifiers. Up until then, bye.